شیر ہیں، خیبر و خندق کے وہ یہ کربلا کے شیر ہیں، کیوں نہ ہوں ہر جنگ میں یہ مثل حیدر فتح یاب، وہ خدا کے شیر یہ شیر خدا کے شیر ہیں۔ اللہم صلی علی محمد۔ سورہ فاتحہ۔ مسیح کے چند بنے۔ سجاد جب دوبارہ اسیر جفا ہوئے، زنجیر اور طوق میں پھر مبتلا ہوئے، روح رسول پاک کو صدمے سوا ہوئے، درد و علم بطول کو لا انتہا ہوئے، گل تھا کہ پھر مدینے کی بستی اجڑتی ہے، گردن میں طوق پاؤں میں زنجیر پڑتی ہے، القصہ جس گھڑی کے نمایاں ہوئی سحر، لشکر ہوا یزید کا آمادہ سفر، اٹھی وضو کو خواہان سلطان باروبر، فضان جان نماز بچھائی بچشم تر، ایک دم ملول خط سے سوا ہوتی جاتی تھی، زینب نماز پڑھتی تھی اور روتی جاتی تھی، زینب نماز پڑھتی تھی اور روتی جاتی تھی، فارغ ہوئی دعا سے جو زینب چشم تر، فضا کو تب بلا کے یہ بولی وہ نوحگر، یہاں سے بہت قریب ہوں سنتی ہوں وہ شجر، پھولی نے جس درخت میں باندھا تھا شکر، لے چل وہاں پہ فاطمہ زہرا کی جائی کو، روؤں گی اس درخت کے نیچے میں بھائی کو، روئی بیان کر کے جو زینب بحال زار، ماں بین دست ہائے حسینہ کی تھی پکار، ایک باغ تھا وہاں کے ہر ایک گل تھا جس کا خار، تھا محتمم وہاں کا تمیم ستم شعار، ظلمت عیاں تھی کفر کی اس بد خصال سے، رکھتا تھا بغض دل میں محمد کی آل سے، پوچھا یہ اس نے آ کے قریب سپاہ شر، عورت یہ کون سی ہے جو روتی ہے اس قدر، بولا کوئی شقی کہ تجھے کیا خبر نہیں، زینب یہی ہے عاشق سلطان بیروبر، مدت سے سوگوارے شہ تشنا کام ہے، یہ خواہر حسین علیہ السلام ہے، اے سرگروہ آل بابا مصیبتا، سر پر اڑاؤ خاک عذاب مصیبتا، تازہ ستم یہ اور ہوا وا مصیبتا، زینب نے کی جہاں سے قضا وا مصیبتا، سامان غسل زینب دلگیر کیجئے، جلدی پھوپھی کے دفن کی تدبیر کیجیے، سجاد جب دوبارہ اسیر جفا ہوئے۔
اعوذ باللہ من الشیطان الرجیم، بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم، السلام علیکم۔ Tonight we are observing the Wafat of Syed of Zainab bint Ali. Please join me in reciting Surah Fatiha for the families of the sponsors and as well as your marhumeens. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Please also join me in reciting this dua shifa for the sick, for the needy, and let us also remember the people who were affected by the earthquake in Turkey and in Syria this morning. The jolts were also felt at the Rosa of Sayyidah Zainab, Salamullah alayha. So we can see how far the damage or the effects have been for this earthquake. So let us recite this dua shifa for the sick, for the needy, and for those who are affected by the earthquake. And also we sent out an email this morning. This is on behalf of Zahra Trust. They have mobilized help on the ground. So whatever you can to help the needy of the earthquake or the people who are affected by the earthquake. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Amman yujibul mudtarra iza da'a wa yakshifu as-sur. Amman yujibul mudtarra iza da'a wa yakshifu as-sur. Amman yujibul mudtarra iza da'a wa yakshifu as-sur. Amman yujibul mudtarra iza da'a yakshifu as-sur. Amman yujibul mudtarra iza da'a wa yakshifu as-sur. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Respectfully may I request Maulana to address tonight's gathering with a loud salawat.
رحم اللہ من قرأ سورة الفاتحہ. بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم. رب العالمین الرحمن. There's a request for Surah Fatiha for marhum Sayyid Rafiq Hussain and Sayyida Shafiqun Nisa. Surah Fatiha. So there's a request for Dua Sehat for Brother Jafar Karmali, cousin of Brother Nisar Karmali, and other mu'mineen who are in need of dua. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Amman yujibul mustarra idha da'ahu yakshifu as-su. Amman yujibul mustarra idha da'ahu yakshifu as-su. Amman yujibul mustarra idha da'ahu yakshifu as-su. أَمَّنْ يُجِيبُ الْمُضْطَرَّ إِذَا دَعَاهُ يَكْشِفُ السُّوءَ أَمَّنْ يُجِيبُ الْمُضْطَرَّ إِذَا دَعَاهُ يَكْشِفُ السُّوءَ. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله الذي قصرت عن رؤيته أبصار الناظرين وعجزت عن نعته أوهام الواصفين. الحمد لله رب العالمين الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين وأبي القاسم محمد وأهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. أما بعد فقد قال الله تبارك وتعالى وقوله الحق وهو أصدق القائلين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل سيروا في الأرض فلينظر ثم انظروا كيف كان عاقبة المكذبين صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوات بيجوا. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Condolences on this sad and sorrow occasion upon which we commemorate the wafat of the daughter of Amir al-Mu'mineen, sister of Imam Hassan wa Imam Hussein, Janabe Zainab Kubra, Salamullahi alayha. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. There are a couple of riwayat regarding her wafat and her shahadat. And one of those days is the 15th of Rajab al-Murajjab in the 62nd year after Hijrah. There are other riwayat as well, but this is one of those days which, many places commemorate her wafat on this day, which took place 1 year after the events of Karbala. The verse that I recited, inshallah, I'll be very brief and concise. It's a working day, and I'm sure even those who are online want to finish programs so that they can get to their remaining tasks of the night and go to sleep, and of course the crowd in front of me as well. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this ayat of Surah An'am, ayat number 11 says, قُلْ سِيرُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ ثُمَّ انظُرُوا كَيْفَ كَانَ عَاقِبَةُ الْمُكَذِّبِينَ. Similar ayat has appeared in Surah Nahl as well. The early ayat, maybe ayat number 15 or 16, also says, سِيرُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ, or قُلْ سِيرُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ فَانظُرُوا كَيْفَ كَانَ عَاقِبَةُ. Over there, the word is مُجْرِمِينَ. Here is مُكَذِّبِينَ. Couple of points regarding this ayat from the tafsir aspect, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses the word siru, which comes from sayr. Urdu mein we use the word sayr, suluk. In Farsi we use the word sayr karna, safar karna. Now, there are two words in Arabic regarding travel. One is sayr, one is safar. What's the difference between the two? Sayr and safar, although both refer toward traveling, safar refers to travel physically. When you physically go somewhere, that means it is a safar. But sayr does not necessarily has to be something which is in a physical way. Is how else can you travel? Well, you can imagine, in your imagination, you can travel to various different places. And that is also considered to be sayr. And also another point worth noticing, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, قُلْ سِيرُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ. Meaning, the translation would be, O Prophet, tell them, travel in the land. Now, grammatically you might say, well, you don't travel in the land, you travel on the land, right? الَّذِينَ يَمْشُونَ عَلَى الْأَرْضِ. Quran also talks about those who walk on the earth. So you walk on the earth, you don't walk in the earth. The word fi refers to in, right? For example, you can say, I pour water in the cup. You don't pour water on the cup, you pour it in the cup. There's a difference between the two. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, قُلْ سِيرُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ. Did not say, قُلْ سِيرُوا عَلَى الْأَرْضِ. Although عَلَى الْأَرْض would have been fine, because you walk on the land, you don't walk in the land. Why is it that Kalam Hakim, the wise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Hakim is using the word in and not on? Is there any grammatical mistake over here? Of course not. Mufassirin have mentioned the reason why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala here is using the word fi fil arde as opposed to alal arde, because when you use the word in, it also adds another aspect. I'll give you an example in English so that maybe it brings us the relevance closer. Someone is busy watching a movie. You say, you call upon his name, Ali, they won't hear. Ali, they won't hear because you're so busy in it. It's like, why are you so glued into the movie? Glued in, meaning you are so busy that you can't even see anything across and around you. You don't even hear the sounds and the voices of the people in your surrounding. Because you're so focused in it, you're into it. That person is so into sports, right? You say that? So and so is so much into sports. In sports means what? This person has passion about that thing, for example. Similarly, when Allah says over here, قُلْ سِيرُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ, as opposed to saying قُلْ سِيرُوا عَلَى الْأَرْضِ, it is possible that when you walk on the land, you don't pay attention to things that are in it. But here Allah says, don't just travel. قُلْ سِيرُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ, travel in the land with ta'ammuq, with pondering, with contemplation, with focus, and not without focus. So when you focus on the land, you look at the things that are in its surrounding, that makes a big difference. So here you understand, this sayr not necessarily mean a vacation. Because when you go on a vacation, let's say your family is going to a vacation to a nice vacation spot in the world somewhere. Usually Central America, South America, or Europe, or whatever destination that you go to. When you go for these sort of vacations, your purpose behind it is to relax. Your purpose behind it is to be focused away from everything and just be, for example, whomever you're with there, with your families, for example, just so that you enjoy that time. You don't want to be worried about homework. You don't want to be kids don't want to be worried about homework. They don't want to be worrying about anything else. You don't want to worry about your work. You want to cut yourself off so that you can relax. When you go on a vacation, you're not thinking about that spot where you're at, really. You're just traveling there. But here Allah says, when you travel, siru fil arde, travel with ta'ammuq, meaning with contemplation, with understanding. When you see the places, it teaches you a great deal. That's why right after saying, Qul siru fil arde, the ayat continued by saying what? Thummanduru, then see. The word unzuru comes from the word nadara, which means to see. But here Allah is not really saying when you go to, for example, Mexico, see things. The word seeing over here refers to what? The word seeing over here refers to pondering. The word seeing over here is establishing your opinion. I'll give you an example. Hazrat Ibrahim is given the command by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to sacrifice his son. What did he say? Ya bunayya, inni azbahuka fanzur madha tara. I saw a dream that I'm sacrificing you. Fanzur, you see what do you think about it? What does he want to see? He saw the dream. He cannot show the dream to Hazrat Ismail. So when he says fanzur, meaning what is your opinion? Establish your opinion. I need your opinion about this dream that I have seen. So same thing is over here. Qul siru fil arde. O Prophet, tell them to travel in the land with contemplation, with thinking, and then establish an opinion regarding that. Fanzur kayfa kana aqibatul mukazzibin. And then look at what was the fate of those who were liars and mukazzibin. As this ayah says, and travel over the land and then observe how was the fate of those who denied the signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when you travel, what should it be increasing? It should be increasing your iman, because you see those who denied the signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right away you say that, even as a physician, a person who is a physician, if they become atheists and if they deny the signs that they can see in the human body and the intricacies of it, that is the person who is amongst those who are the deniers right here. So therefore, we got to understand these ayat of Quran are there for us to ponder. So travel is important in our lives. It is not necessarily only for the sake of joy and for the sake of getting away. Rather, it is also a means of understanding the fate of other places. For example, when you go to the Ihram in Misr, when you go to the other wonders of the world, these are there so that you take heed from it and of course derive some sort of lesson for yourself. Here what I wanted to share with you with this muqaddimah is the fawaid of traveling, that I'm encouraging all of you to travel. Not just only for leisure, but also while you're traveling for leisure, while you're traveling for business, while you're traveling for other reasons, make that travel into the travel with it, which is serving as a lesson for you and has ibrat for you, because there were many deniers who denied the signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Quickly, what are some of the benefits of it? And then I'll get to why I chose this discussion, because Janabe Zainab salamullahi alayha traveled a great deal. To a lady who lived in that time, for her to travel all the distances that she traveled is remarkable. There are 8 travels that are associated with Bibi Zainab. The first travel of hers that we find is the travel that she does in the year 36 after Hijrah. There were other travels within Medina and Mecca. Maybe she went through Hajj, for example, from Medina to Mecca. But the travels that are documented in the history, the first travel, really meaningful travel, was when she traveled from the city of Medina along with her father, Amirul Mu'mineen, in the year 35-36 after Hijrah, when Imam ascends to the Khilafat al-Zahiri. Imam establishes Kufa to be his capital, moves it from Medina, brings it to the city of Kufa, and Janab Zainab, along with her husband, Abdullah, and along with the rest of the family, traveled with Amirul Mu'mineen to the city of Kufa. And of course, after the wafat or the shahadat of Amirul Mu'mineen, they go back to Medina. Janab Zainab, along with her brothers, she travels back to the city of Medina and stays there for the next 20 years. And then the travel that begins after that, she goes from Medina to Mecca on the 28th day of the Rajab, month of Rajab, which inshallah will have the Majlis for the Rawangi of Imam Hussain along with his family members. And then from there, they arrive in the city of Mecca on 3rd of Shaban. They stay there for a few months, 4 or 5 months, until in the month of Zulhijjah, they begin their another travel from city of Mecca toward Iraq. And then from Iraq, when they are in Karbala, Janab Zainab spends 9 days in Karbala. After those 9 days spent from 2nd of Muharram until the 11th of Muharram, they travel to the city of Kufa. In the city of Kufa, they only stay there for a few days, not many days that are mentioned. From the city of Kufa to Sham, she stayed there for about 8 days. After 8 days, they traveled toward the Balad Sham, which is of course Syria, as was mentioned earlier in the announcements, that the devastation that has happened in the northern part of Syria and the southeastern part of Turkey, even Jordan and other places in the neighboring town, but especially near Halab, right? Halab and Raqqa, where you have ziyarat of Ra'sul Hussein and the ziyarat of Ammar Yasir and other companions, Uwais Qarani. At least in Raqqa, there used to be these mazarat there before ISIS. These are the places of ziyarat that are present there, but of course they have come under this devastation from this recent earthquake. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give recovery to all of those who have recovered from this severe earthquake, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive those who have departed, the departed souls. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and grant them the highest place in His Jannah. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So, of course, that was her third travel. From there, she goes to the city, the Balad al-Sham, or Damascus, where they arrive on the first day of the month of Safar. And as the history says, they arrived on the first day of Safar in the 61st year after Hijrah. They stay in that city for few days. Some mention a week, some mention a little bit more than a week. And then there's debate over it, whether they stayed there for an entire year or they stayed there for a week or so. Many of our scholars believe that they only stayed there for not more than a week. Why? Because on those very beginning first few days in Damascus, in that Masjid-e-Ali that you have traveled to and seen and done the ziyarat of the Sayyidah Zainab and Sayyidah Ruqayya and the Babu Saghir and the other mazarat that are present over there. There's Jami Umawi Kabir. Over there, when the first time the Ahl Haram were gathered and the first interaction with Yazid, that is where we find that Yazid, talks and he makes a mockery of Ahl Haram, makes a mockery of the head of Imam Hussein, and he's drunk at that moment. He's got the court filled with Muslims and non-Muslims. Even Roman Empire, his ambassadors were also sitting with him in the company of all of these people. He's got these ladies, these women, these children who are made captives, along with our fourth Imam, and they're standing there and they start talking. That very first discussion leads to what? Leads to not just the mockery of Yazid himself, but also shakes the entire governmental structure of Yazid. Look at the power of those who are apparently weak. So how many times people give up and say, well, what can we do? These are big powers and we can't really do anything in front of them. Insensitive, but I'll mention it anyway. Just yesterday, after the earthquakes in Turkey, the same very famous cartoonist, Charlie Hebdo, released another cartoon. And he shows and depicts the pictures of earthquake in Turkey, and the subtitle says, you don't have to send tanks to kill them, right? Why? God is taking care of it, in other words. So insensitive. And this is called freedom of speech. If you protest against that, so well, he's got his right to say, voice his opinions. The same who has spoken against Prophet of Islam and other sensitive issues, which of course go to the extent where it hurts the sentiments of millions and billions of people around the world. And how insensitive these comments are. That a tragedy has taken place, a country has been struck, and the entire world is mourning over the tragedy. Yet in the name of freedom of speech, this cartoonist or this paper comes out and displays this despicable act of mocking that we don't need to send tanks to kill, because majority who died are Muslims. We don't need to send tanks to kill Muslims. They will be killed by, for example, act of God, for example. So this is where insensitivities exist and still continue to grow. But coming back to our discussion, Janab Zainab is standing there, and all the weak children, if you want to call it, because they're all in their shackles. They all are, captives. And they're being guarded by armed men who are holding the latest weapons that they have. They can't dare go ahead and say anything. But this is where you see the power come about. The power of Lady Zainab. As she speaks, opens her mouth, talks in response to Yazid, just shakes the very foundation of the government of Yazid. The one who was sitting on his throne, drinking alcohol and saying, لعبت هاشم بالملك فلا جاء خبر ولا وحي نزل. That Hashim, the clan of Banu Hashim, they were playing with the government. There was never a wahi or the revelation that came down to the Prophet. There was never a news or a Nabi that ever came down. These are the words of Yazid documented. Yet you find still people defending this man. So with that said, Janab Zainab, don't think ever that you are lower in number, you are weak on this land, and you cannot voice. No, learn from Janab Zainab. Learn from those who are present in that gathering where you would be fearful. Why? Because they're all against you. They're stronger than you. They can order your killing at the moment. But here Janab Zainab speaks with firm authority. People say as if we heard Amirul Mu'mineen was talking. They say the same thing was when Abdullah ibn Afif heard the words of Zainab in Kufa. He had gone blind. He said to his daughter, has Qayamat taken place? She said, no, there's no Qayamat. He said, I hear the sound and the voice of my Maula Ali. He said, no. What you hear is the sound of Zainab bint Ali, because Zainab has taken the role of Ali at the moment. Zainab had taken another role at another place in Karbala. Now she has taken the role of Ali ibn Abi Talib, and she is safeguarding everyone that is with her, and her speech and her words, that khutbah that she gave. Inshallah, we'll talk about it on the Friday sermon. The khutbah that she gave shook the foundation of the government of Yazid, and that is the reason many of our ulama believe that there was no way Yazid could have kept them as captives for an entire year after the uproar that was created in the very first gathering. Why? The very first gathering, all the captives are brought, all the things are happening. Imam Zainul Abidin speaks, Yazid cuts Imam's kalam down. He says, well, first he does not allow Imam Zainul Abidin to speak, but eventually after pressure from others, let this man speak. Let this young man speak. He's in shackles. He's captive. What is he going to say? Yazid knew what he was going to say, but he was forced into allow Imam Zainul Abidin to speak. Imam ascends to the pulpit. Imam starts talking. He says, let it be known, if those who do not know who I am, let it be known, Ana Ali ibn al-Hussein, and I am Ali, son of Hussein. And then he shows that his lineage goes all the way to the daughter of Rasulullah. And then he says, not only that, Ana ibn Makkah, Ana ibn Zamzam, Ana ibn this. He continued by saying that I am the son of Makkah, I am the son of Zamzam, I am the son of Safa and Marwa, I am the son of this. He mentions all of that to the extent that Yazid has to say what? To the muazzin. It was not time for azan. He said, oh muazzin, give azan. Muazzin, give azan. It's not even time for azan. He wants to cut off the kalam of Imam Zainul Abidin. And you know the rest of the story. When the muazzin got to Ashhadu anna Muhammadur Rasulullah, Imam said, stop. Whose grandfather is Rasulullah? If you say he's yours, everybody knows that you're lying. If you say he's our grandfather, then why are we made captives and standing in front of you like this? This shook the foundation of the government of Yazid. The khutbah of Zainab shook the foundation of the government of Yazid, and that's why ulama believe that Janab Zainab and the company would not have stayed there for that many days, and to the extent that the entire year they were probably back after 7 or 8 days spending in that dungeon. We see that Rasulullah knew the tragedy and the calamity of Zainab. And that's why Rasulullah had said, Man baka ala masa'ib hadhil bint kana kaman baka ala akhawayha al-Hasan wal-Husayn. Whoever weeps on this daughter of mine, on this girl, on this bint, because Janab Zainab is only 4 or 5 years old at the time of the wafat of Rasulullah. He says, whoever weeps on Zainab, on the masa'ib of Zainab, it is as if he has wept or she has wept on the masa'ib of akhawayha, brothers of Zainab, Hassan and Hussein. You know the shahadat of Imam Hassan? Imam Hassan is poisoned to the extent that Imam is spitting blood out of his mouth. And then when Imam Hussein tries to console Imam Hassan, he says, oh my brother, cover up the spots of blood that are coming from my mouth. Imam Hussein says, why? He said, I don't want my sister Zainab seeing that I'm throwing up blood. Imam Hussein weeps. He says, Imam Hassan says, "Oh Hussein, don't weep. La yawma ka yawmika ya Aba Abdullah." When you will be martyred, it will be a different story. This is nothing compared to what will happen to you. I would say, "Oh Maula Hassan, you're worried about the few spots of blood. If Zainab lays eyes on those few spots of blood, that how she devastated she would be. Look at her brother in this state. Come to Karbala, oh Hassan. See that Zainab has to see not only the blood, but she also has to see the torn apart, and she also has to see the body parts cut up by the enemies. How many bodies were brought by Hussein? The body of Qasim cut up into pieces. Zainab has to witness that. And the body of Ali Akbar with that dagger in his heart. And the body of little Ali Asghar when there was a three-pronged arrow that pierced into his neck. And then the bodies of Aun and Muhammad. How Zainab would have bared all those difficulties, but nothing less than that what she was witnessing when Hussein was under attack, when Yazid, when Shimr was about to sever the head of Hussein. Zainab climbs to Tilla Zainabiyah and she says, "Oh Shimr, be gentle on my brother. He's been hungry and thirsty for 3 days." ألا لعنة الله القوم الظالمين وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. Allah, please accept our ibadah tonight. Allah, we've committed a lot of sins. Please forgive our sins. Allah, give us the tawfiq and ability to follow the commands and the teachings of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salatu wassalam. Allah, give our ladies the ability to follow the teachings of Janab Zainab salamullahi alayha, to follow the seerat of Bibi Zainab and Bibi Kulsum. Allah, hasten the reappearance of our awaited Imam. Make us amongst the helpers and the soldiers of Imam. Wa akhiru da'wana and alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Allahumma salli. Noha? Ya Hussein. Ya Hussein. Ya Hussein. Ya Hussein. Ya Hussein, 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 Ya Hussein. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa Assalamu alayka ya Rasulullah, Assalamu alayka ya Nabi Allah, Assalamu alayka ya Habib Allah, Assalamu alayka ya Khiyaratullah, Assalamu alaykum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Assalamu alayka ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, Assalamu alayka Sayyid al-Wasiyyin, Assalamu alayka ya Fatimatu Zahra, Sayyidat Nisa al-Alameen. Assalamu alaykum ya Sibti al-Rahmah wa Imami al-Huda, al-Hasani wal-Husayn, Sayyida Shababi Ahl al-Jannati ajma'een. Assalamu alayka Ali ibn al-Husayn, Muhammad ibn Ali, wa Jafar ibn Muhammad, wa Musa ibn Jafar, wa Ali ibn Musa, wa Muhammad ibn Ali, wa Ali ibn Muhammad, wa al-Hasan ibn Ali. Assalamu alayka Sahib al-Asr wal-Zaman, Assalamu alayka Imam al-Insi wal-Jan, Assalamu alayka Sharik al-Quran. Ajjalallahu ta'ala farajak wa sahhalallahu makhrajak wa dhuhurak wa ja'alana min